Resident Evil 3 Nemesis has officially been announced in Sony's PlayStation State of Play video that dropped early on December 10th. Now, we're diehard Resident Evil fans here, so we wanted to take a quick look at the news, some tiny snippets of gameplay that dropped, and just do a little comparison stuff. Now, first off, Resident Evil 3 Nemesis will launch April 3rd for PC, PS4, and Xbox One. That's like 14 months after Resident Evil 2, and it's like totally unprecedented. It's running on the same engine as Resident Evil 2 and Resident Evil 7, although this is clearly a separate project that was probably at least sort of being worked on at the same time as Resident Evil 2's development. But as you can tell, if you know the series, Resident Evil 3 is a very different game, and we'll get to that. But straight off the bat, from what we can see, obviously it looks gorgeous. Now over here, this is Jill from Resident Evil 3, the original game, and now here's Jill Valentine now. Very much like Resident Evil 2, they take the character designs here and just kind of give them a little bit of a modern spin, a little bit more practical elements while kind of keeping the philosophy of the original look. Same thing with Carlos Oliveira, definitely probably like the second main character, if you think about it. He definitely looks a little rougher here, a little dirtier, but I think it totally works compared to his original look, you know? Then we also have Brad Vickers then versus Brad Vickers now. I'm really looking forward to seeing how they handle his scenes. We also have Nikolai very, very briefly here shown in the trailer. This is what he used to look like. And then of course, Mikhail Victor, I think that's him. Definitely has a little bit of a different look, but it's cool. You know, the whole subway scene is clearly there, and that's exciting. But really the big comparison here is the city itself, Raccoon City, of course. The events of Resident Evil 3 tie in very closely with Resident Evil 2, but the city is really the star of the show in this one, more so than 2, where you kind of breeze through it in the beginning and just here and there throughout the game. Now, one thing to notice, look at the city in the original Resident Evil 3. The detail is off the charts, of course, because of how they rendered backgrounds back then, and it definitely seems like it's carrying over with 3 here now. There is just a lot going on. Crashed cars, fire, glass, neon signs, zombies everywhere. It seems like they're really, you know, getting it across the same way. And I'm excited because in Resident Evil 2, I thought personally that some of the parts where you got to actually see Raccoon City were some of the best elements of the game, and now that we're gonna get more of that in Resident Evil 3, I am pumped. The developers put out a little developer diary after the trailer dropped, and they did acknowledge that compared to Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 3 is more action-focused, which confirms what I was hoping, because that's how the original games were. Resident Evil 3 kind of amped it up. It was kind of the first time they really gave you like an actual assault rifle with an ammo counter in the core loop of the game, not as something you earn later on. And there's just a lot more emphasis on actually shooting and killing the zombies and not avoiding every single one. There are certain instances where you just gotta blow some dudes away. So the fact that the developers acknowledge that in this new 2020 game, the focus is gonna be on action, I'm excited because in Resident Evil 2, when they did let you go guns blazing, like when you got to play in hunks mode, that were some of the best elements of the game because the shooting and the deformation of the zombies and the gore and everything just felt great. So I'm happy that the developers are not changing the core philosophy here. Also, in the small snippets of gameplay we did get to see in that developer doc, you see Jill walking around, you see her cross through a door, and you also get to see the dodge move making a return, which that is a very slight game changer, but pretty important. Clearly, the over-the-shoulder stuff returns from Resident Evil 2, and the sprinting and all of that, but there's the dodge move, and like I said, a heavier focus on action, so I'm curious to see what else they might throw in here. Especially considering the trailer opened with a first-person sequence, kind of like as a bait and switch, but that first-person sequence, you can tell especially by the ledge when she jumps out the window, just the way it moves, the way it flows, seems very much like that is a playable moment, and I'm really curious to see if they kind of add those throughout the game to add some more intense kind of scripted sequences. I wouldn't mind that. I'd like to see that. And that, of course, brings us to the Nemesis himself. Now, they did say in a developer documentary that the Nemesis has more ways than Tyrant from Resident Evil 2 to track down his target. I'm curious to see what that means from a gameplay element, and I'm very curious to see what they're gonna do with him, seeing as how the Tyrant, or Mr. X in Resident Evil 2, the modern version, was very much a large element of the game and a roaming enemy that could track you down, whereas Resident Evil 3 and Nemesis, he was based way more around the excitement of him bursting through when you least expect it and completely surprising you in, you know, sometimes a very scripted and exciting moment. I'm curious to see if they keep that.
Jill! Brad! We've gotta...
But they have confirmed in a press release that he can arm himself with the rocket launcher. That's what they mentioned, and that's definitely a good sign, considering his redesign is somewhat substantial. We have an image of it here, and I love his stretchy face. I think it's really cool. He's got a little bit more machinery on him, but I like where it's going. I like the redesigns overall. I think they at least keep in line with what we had many, many, many years ago. Look at the Nemesis then and look at the Nemesis now. He was always a very gross dude, and they're keeping that, especially in the way the face is stretching. Oh, he's nasty. He's just good Resident Evil nastiness, and I'm all about it. And also, we got the announcement that the game does include the 4 versus 1 multiplayer mode, Project Resistance, which is now just Resident Evil Resistance. That's for free included. And I'm into that because when they first announced that, I was like, yeah, that seems fun, but nothing I really, really want to spend a long amount of time on. But now that it's like included with Resident Evil 3, yeah, sure, I'll give it a shot. We did get to play it recently at an event and did come away surprised. It did have, some good fun to it. How long it'll last, we don't know. But at the very least, it might be a nice little diversion, There's still, of course, a lot of questions for Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Like I said, how they're going to actually handle some of the Nemesis gameplay elements, how the story is going to be changed, tweaked, modernized, shortened in certain ways, how much replayability is there going to be compared to the original game, what stuff they do show and what stuff they kind of brush off quietly to the side. How much in line is it going to be with Resident Evil 2, which I thought was like a near perfect modern representation of the original game. Can they pull it off twice? Can this team nail it like the Resident Evil 2 team did? We're gonna have to wait and see, but all I want to say is that they should also definitely do Resident Evil Code Veronica next, and then do Dino Crisis after that, if we're taking requests. Thanks, guys. Oh, and we also got a very quick look at the Resident Evil 3 Collector's Edition. Honestly, straight up, it's kind of the same thing as the Resident Evil 2 Collector's Edition. It seems like it's a GameStop exclusive. It's just under $200, and it comes with an 11-inch statue of Jill. Now, judging by the Resident Evil 2 statue of Leon Kennedy, it was really, really high quality, if I'm being honest. Probably one of the better Collector's Edition statues, so maybe it's something worth swooping if you are like me and you like spending your money on physical, tangible goods that you can't take with you when you die. But hey, you do you. It's up to you. Something to think about. Anyway, that's Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. That's what we know right now. The announcement has been very exciting, but more information, is probably going to come out soon. I'm sure we're definitely going to get a better glimpse at gameplay soon, but like I said, just to follow up, it's dropping April 3rd, 2020 for PC, PS4, and Xbox One, and we'll definitely be there with tons of videos. So, if you got informed thanks to this, clicking the like button is the best way you can help us out. We would really appreciate that. And if you're new, maybe consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell, because we put out videos like this every single day. But either way, as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time.